Hello, Joe. How are you?
Joe,
I am great. It's so great to see you guys. Do you guys know what today is by chance?
I believe it's the anniversary of something.
It absolutely is.
It's
I don't know if
1
you
year.
planned this or not, but literally to the day, the 1 year anniversary of Alaska Divided by Zero and Cold Fusion making
Very
their
Yeah.
Very
broadcast
cool.
debut.
It was a total coincidence. The stars aligned, so that was pretty sweet.
And we like you even more after 1 year.
I'm glad to hear it. I appreciate that. CJ is in the house.
Hey, CJ.
So, guys, what's going on tonight?
Well, you've had some weather down there, but we sent it to you. And so we're talking about extremes and, the video clip that I have, for my presentation. And it's talking about art and how going to the extremes sometimes is the proper thing to do if you're trying to be influenced and wanting to do things that are unique.
Very cool. Was that my cue to play?
Well, yeah, we might as well go ahead and roll it, and we'll let the show speak for itself.
All right, I'm going to drop all of us down for a moment and get things started.
Security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. Helen Keller. Several weeks ago, cold weather was parked over Siberia, Alaska, and Canada. Our cabin in Chicken, Alaska reached 62 below zero. Last week, we sent that weather south to our friends in America. The result was that record cold reached deep into the lower 48. The coldest temperature ever recorded in North America was in Snag, Yukon Territory. On February 3rd, 1947, the temperature reached 81.4 degrees below zero. Our cabin is 120 miles away from Snag. Inspiration and art come from outside the ordinary. To quote Frank Zappa, without deviation from the norm, progress is not possible. If you live in a house that is heated and cooled at a steady 68 degrees all the time, you never get wet, hot, cold, uncomfortable, or distressed. Are you going to have realistic insights into people and societies that live and experience a different reality than you? Absolutely not. Some people may ask, why tolerate extremes? When you look into the issue, it's a complex answer. For one, you're exposed to more options when problem solving. More options mean we explore areas of art and go where we couldn't go before. When we travel, we end up exploring extremes. Multiple times we have rented a Jeep and drove out into Death Valley. Seeking remote ghost towns in the desert is a particular favorite pastime for us. Hawaii is another destination of extremes. The rain in the high rainforest can be cold and damp. That same rain in Hilo turns things into a miserable, humid slog. In life, we temporarily expose ourselves to experiences that we later can reflect upon. Our experiences combine within ourselves to give us a sense of who we are. The better we know ourselves, the better we can communicate through our art. You can appreciate a glass of cold water at 105 degrees Fahrenheit in Furnace Creek, Death Valley. You can appreciate the warmth of a fire when it's 60 below zero outside. You can appreciate being dry inside while it is raining in Hilo. You can appreciate being alive when you stare into the crater of Kilauea at night. Experience allows us to develop appreciation for life and living and things such as heated houses, air conditioning, sturdy roofs, and hot tubs. That's why we celebrate moments with a good meal, a glass of wine, scotch, or a cigar. The extremes may try us at times. However, those experiences become opportunities for creatives to be able to compare and contrast. Growing up in poverty helped Brancusi differentiate between the essential and the ephemeral. Experience translates into more unique writing, painting, photography, or sculpture. Alaska is the most beautiful place on Earth in the summer. The warmest temperature ever recorded was 100 degrees Fahrenheit at Fort Yukon. The coldest temperature was 80 below zero Fahrenheit. That's a 180-degree difference between the extremes. As artists, we need to remember that life is either a daring adventure or nothing. It's time to start living. This is Cold Fusion. Hello, Joe.
Hello, that was very cool.
Well, no, it really was. Yeah,
No pun intended.
Snag in the Yukon Territory. It was a runway built during World War II for when they were shuttling the airplanes over to Russia, and so it was one of the places they could land and refuel, or if there was bad weather. And so there was a weather station out there, but today I don't think there's a weather station out there anymore. But it actually was colder than that out there because the runway is actually above the river. And so down at the river, it probably was 83 or 84 below zero.
Holy crap.
So much, much colder than Florida where you are.
Yes, granted. I mean, we did have to put on our flannels and start a fire out in the backyard. But hey.
All right. Well, you guys have a good night. We'll talk to you later, Joe.
Well, thank you. That was awesome, Ray. It was great seeing you again. And she's like, I'm just going to take the camera. I'm going to turn it this way. And
because you don't want to see what he's doing over there.
fair enough.
Well, actually, he's going downstairs so he can log in and watch the show.
All right. So what do you got going on?
So what we've got going on, well, we've been, thank you for letting me kind of take over the Indie Escape social media the last couple days.
Oh, no, thank you. It's been very impressive. I appreciate that.
It's been fun. I hope I haven't offended anyone yet. I've just been posting, like all the different, I'll be taking over for the month of January just to see where it goes. Posting prompts every day. People, don't be shy. Jump in there. And we're gonna, but Joe has a few things. You've got some things to talk about tonight too, don't you?
I do. It's a brand new year. We've got some very cool things. Hold on one second. I apologize. Yeah, don't want to do that in the mic. So we have a mutual friend, Terry Jarrow.
Terry is awesome.
And I believe you met Terry in the Orlando area a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, actually, because I helped my parents move across country, and I helped drive their truck across country, and then I flew out of Orlando. But I made a point to go early because Terry's kind of my mentor for my drone stuff, and so I wanted to go hang out with Terry for a day, and so it was really awesome. Got to hang out with Terry, hang out with Kelly, and just had a great time.
Sweet. So as you know, I'm in Florida as well, and I visited the set of the movie that Terry shot recently called Harlow's Haunt. Had a great time with him, the cast, the crew, and with John Dugan from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He was Grandpa in it. But yeah, it's actually out on DVD now.
Nice.
So
we will have to get our grubby little hands on a copy up here in Alaska.
And mine is personalized, and there's a cool feature on here, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to show it on camera. Probably not, because I can't figure out the angles and my fat fingers, and yeah, that's not going to show up, is it?
It says Joe Ridgely, the Indie Escape Network.
Yes, and there is a nice little review I did. So
very cool.
It was fun to be involved with the film and hang out with the cast and crew. We were also in the Tampa area, what was it, a month ago, and they did a premiere. And again, I was there with the cast, crew, John Dugan again. So I just want to say thank you to Terry, Kelly. I don't want to miss anybody. Amy, Crystal. I'm going to miss people. They're going to get pissed off. Dylan, and the usuals. So, but it's going to be a big year for the Indie Escape Network as well. I'm hoping we've got new people joining us, so
Yep.
You're not going to be the only female anymore. How do you feel about that?
Oh my God, I'm so excited. More estrogen. Yes.
So we have Wendy joining us. Hopefully her show will be starting by the end of the month. Wendy is a voiceover actress and an actress, so very excited to have her on. And her boyfriend is, I believe, an indie director as well. So
Oh, cool.
she's going to have
Awesome.
some amazing guests. So, all right, I'm done hogging things up. I apologize.
Well, as I mentioned, I've been taking over our social media stuff. I've been posting. I'll have a different prompt every day, but in particular, once a week. There's actually once a week on Sundays. There's going to be a writing prompt. So share like the ideas. Something we do in the writing community is to share like a little blurb from whatever your work in progress is, based on that day's writing prompt. Saturdays are going to be community day, where share a link to your work, share a link to your website, share a link to your blog. And most of the rest of the days, Mondays are going to be Mental Health Mondays in honor of CJ Robles' Manic Mondays show. Wednesdays are word building Wednesdays, and the rest of the days are going to be kind of wild card, depending on what my little pea brain comes up with on the day-to-day basis. I actually have this all mapped out for the whole month, and I actually have my little social media posts, so the little pictures you guys have been seeing, I have those all like planned out now. But what will also happen is, as I see people participating, I'm going to select one to read on air once a week, if I can pull it off. And so tonight I selected Savannah Storm. She participated in this week's writing prompt. She is an author from South Africa, and she is a romance author. She writes romance, both kind of like with a sci-fi bent, a fantasy bent, very erotic, so I'm going to make Joe blush tonight. Yes. And it's not even February. But she's from South Africa, very talented author. She's also part of Champagne Book Group, which is they do romance. We had last February, we had DK and Jody, who were two editors for Champagne Book Group, on our February show that was about romance. So coincidentally, yes, Joe is totally like, oh no. But so just to give her a shout out, if we could put up the picture of her, this is her work in progress that she shared a blurb from the writing prompt. The writing prompt for this week was promise, because the new year is always full of promise. So I picked that one to start us off for the year. So this book is a gender switched retelling of Robin Hood. So Robin Hood's going to be a girl. And it's actually going to be a romance fantasy involving magic and other stuff. So the prompt with the word promise was: pulling away, he lingered, sipping at her lips while squeezing and releasing her waist. To touch another part of her would be hazardous. No more, Robin? She nodded. I promise. So these blurbs, by the way, have to be done in the limited space of Twitter. So you've got to use the word, and you've got to do it in just a little bit. But here's the blurb from her book. For sheltered Lady Ravona, a trip to Luxley Manor to investigate her father's disappearance is a chance to escape her judgmental mother. In town, the malevolent Lord Emil is taxing and starving the people, and a mysterious dark force is draining the land. Determined to help the townsfolk with her magic and skills, her guardian taught her, she assumes the male role as Robin. The new sheriff of Netherby isn't what he seems. Assassin Barrick is in disguise, tasked by the Baron of Kenningham to thwart his brother Emil. What he did not expect to encounter was the beautiful Lady Ravona bathing in a moonlit river. Nor did he expect an ally in the outlaw Robin. Aiding the lad is in line with Barrick's task, but it doesn't take him long to realize who Robin is. Hiding from the handsome sheriff isn't something Ravona wants to do, but when she needs his help to save her father. Together with magic and swords, they take on Emil, his ancient amulet, and the plot to destroy all they stand for, all the while trying not to fall in love. So if you want to find more of Savannah's writing, you can. She's Savannah Storm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. and very talented writer. I was gonna, if ever I see like Brian O'Halloran again, she writes a little bit of interspecies erotica too. aliens, aliens and humans. So, but no, it's a very talented writer. So, but yeah. So every week I will be finding a way to highlight one of our authors, filmmakers within the group that participates in our prompts.
That is awesome. And I'm digging it. And the participation is like skyrocketing, and it's a beautiful thing.
It'll be fun. And also the whole idea is also to get to know who is following us and what are they working on and how can we help them? Because
Exactly.
also like, what do they want to see from us? So it'll be just a lot of fun too. So. All right. And then for tonight's show, unfortunately we had the hurricane back in November that kind of thwarted bringing David on. But tonight's show, we are going to have David Allen Voyles, I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name, a fellow horror author who he has spent years as a retired teacher. He's a writer, and he used to run a ghost tour out of a 72 Cadillac Hearse, so from which he bases his writing. So I'm really excited to have him come on our show and tell us what he's got going about his creative journey.
All right. Without further ado, here is David. And if you guys need anything, just let me know.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Good to see you, and thanks for coming on.
Oh, yes.
I've been my whole idea for this show, it was the premise that, in northern countries in times of darkness, the Christmas wasn't necessarily this like time of, good cheer and happiness. It was time to gather around and tell creepy stories around the campfire, tell creepy stories around the fire. And that was the tradition for many years. And it's only been like in the 20th century that has gone by the wayside. And it's such a joyful time of year. It's like, if you look a lot of cultures, it's kind of the opposite. And so I loved your stories, your 13 Days of Christmas. And then, obviously your other stories that are more like your tales from the hearse. So before I get too far ahead of myself and put the cart before the horse, tell the Indie Escape Network a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah, sure. As you said, I have a background in teaching. I taught English literature, high school English for 30 years, and always enjoyed horror. That's always been a thing. Equal to my interest in teaching has been an interest in Halloween. I don't know. Okay. I've just never grown out of it. I just love Halloween.
Nope,
my
fun.
wife and I have had a Halloween party for over 40 years. It's not huge in size, but we have let it grow in terms of what we do with crazy props and all kinds of things. And as a matter of fact, when we started the ghost tour business about in 2015, I guess, the year before, we had often started having themes to the Halloween parties, and I had the idea of a ghost tour at the house. And we have a little bit of property. There's some wooded area around the house, so I could make scenes outside and make scenes inside and actually take people around in little groups. And it was just a lot of fun. And so after the party, my son and my wife and I were grilling outside on our deck. And it was kind of recap the party. You go, well, how did that go? And as we started talking about it, I said, people, it doesn't matter how old you are, people love to hear stories, especially scary stories. And having that whole idea of taking them around, I said, wouldn't it be cool if you could like do a ghost tour, but what if you had a hearse? What if you had, like you could get people in the back of the hearse, drive around to scary stuff, and we could do the kind of thing we do, because we love to go on ghost tours, but we had never been on one that is like the ones that we ended up doing. So in the course of that night, it was kind of funny. We were cooking hamburgers. My wife was coming in and out. My son and I were sitting outside. We often smoke cigars when we're on as an official part of grilling hamburgers, And so after a while, after 30 or 40 minutes, or maybe longer than that, maybe we'd already eaten. And after that, my wife came back in and she was hearing us still talk about this idea about getting a hearse. And she said, it was funny at first, but now it's starting to get scary. Y'all are sounding like really serious about this. Well, in a year's time, we had found a 1972 Cadillac Hearse
Nice.
and had found the people that could help to renovate it. We got it so that you could get 10 people in the back. Actually, you take the bottom out so that, because you can't normally, you don't have any seats back there, obviously. So we had to put seats in. We put a little part of a coffin, had a flat screen TV on it so that you could actually stream outside when we wanted them to, but we could also show video from the laptop sitting in the front seat. My son dressed up like this like a Grim Reaper. Actually, I was more the Undertaker. I sat in the back and told stories, sat on a little stool. They sat in a little L shape, where they could see the screen when we wanted them to, and then we could stop and get out when we wanted to. We went to a beautiful cemetery on one tour. We would go down by the river on another and go to a church graveyard. Oh, we just did the most fun things. And my son is tech-minded, so he could create it. He could make sure that no matter what, we were going to see ghosts on this tour because they could see outside, and then we could stream and put the ghosts so that they appeared on the view that you were seeing from the camera that was shooting outside. So we just had a blast with that. That was just awesome. So much fun. So we did that. And then we got to the point where we did it for 3 years. And then we said, we either need to expand and have another vehicle and do some more with it, or we need to shut it down because it's just not enough with just one car. And we decided that, okay, it's been a good run. Maybe we should just stop. And that was a good thing because then it was 2018 and COVID hit. That would have killed us. We wouldn't have been, we would have lost everything. So it was probably a good thing. And that's the point at which I decided that I'd start writing. I said, well, I still have the stories that I like telling. And a lot of the stories that I told on the tour were totally made up. We took them to real places where there were ghostly things, but sometimes my son was the one who said, they said, a lot of the stories, they're not all that scary. I think there need to be a little bit more. So I told people as soon as they got in the hearse, and I gave them in the introduction, I stole the line from Mark Twain. And I told them it was a Mark Twain line. So never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So sometimes you can see the twinkle in my eye and you'll be able to tell that, our story's taking a little turn here. But so we would have some fun things, but I had stories to tell. The tours were, over. I was retired from teaching. So I thought, well, why not? I think it was in the summer that this happened that we made the decision, but I said I could come up with some Christmas stories. I wonder if I could get 13 Christmas, horror stories for Christmas, because that's what Christmas needs is, horror. And it's like you said, it goes way back to Celtic times, but also Victorian times in England were really a big deal to gather and tell ghost stories. And I'm like you, I wanted to bring that tradition back. I wanted to have people telling ghost stories at Christmas time. So I did that and came up with the stories. And the last story, the 13th story, is the title story for the book, The 13th Day of Christmas. It's really a novella or, novelette if you want, because it's longer than a short story, but not long enough to be a novel. And that gives its title to the whole thing. I just decided that would be the title for all of them. But, and it's probably the darkest thing I've ever written, the actual story of the 13th Day of Christmas. But anyway, that's kind of what got me into it. And then once I started writing those, I thought, well, I'll keep going with it. And I can tell you a little bit as we go about how the other novellas and short story collections got going. But that was kind of the basis for it.
Well, and when you were doing the tour, you were in character as Virgil Nightshade. How did you come up with that?
Well, I wanted to I thought an Undertaker would be kind of a good character to play. And I wanted a neat name. And then being a literature teacher, I thought, okay, there's some characters in literature that I like. And another fun thing I did in teaching, one of the most fun things that I would do, because I taught world literature, was we wouldn't teach all of Dante's Inferno, but I would teach an excerpt from it. And in the first semester, I'd always try to time it so it came at the end of October, because I didn't have to go in a chronological sequence. I could do it in whatever order I wanted. So I transformed the room and put all kinds of horror stuff in it, and strobe lights and spooky music, and cut the lights out. So when the kids came in from the hall into my room, the lights were out and the whole thing was like a haunted house. And I told them, I think Dante's Inferno is a haunted house. It's the and he has a guide that takes, Dante, the narrator, Virgil was the poet. the guide that took him through the underworld. And so I took that name Virgil. And another favorite book of mine was Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes. And Jim
Okay.
Nightshade is one of the boys. There are the two boys that
Right. Okay.
have a lot of things
That makes
happening.
sense
So I
now.
like Nightshade. So I took Virgil Nightshade and made that my name.
Oh, that's awesome. Like that makes total sense now. I like, now that I make those connections. Okay. That's
And I don't
awesome.
know how many people, would ever catch on to that. And it didn't matter if they did or if they didn't, because it's just the name that I came up with. But it was a really, really fun thing to do. I mean, I miss a lot of that, but at the same time, it was stressful at times. A 72 Cadillac, when you have an old car, it can be cantankerous at times. We were very fortunate. We had to cancel, I'd say less than a handful of times, less than 5 times. We had one breakdown with people in the car, with guests in the car, where I had to like send them on their way and say, I'm sorry, we can't go any further. And they had to call a Uber or whatever for one group, and the other had somebody come. And it was on Halloween. And we had 3 tours. We did 2. And my son started saying, there's something going on with the car. And do you think, what do you think we should do? And I said, well, we just got one more tour. We're doing okay. And the car gave out. Like we pulled up to the university. There's a haunted theater on the campus at the university at Asheville. And we made it into the parking lot and stopped. I'm in the back seat. My son's in the front. You had the division, but it's a sliding glass, but we left the glass open. I turned around to look at him because I knew we were kind of stopping in an odd way. And he's going,
oh no,
this is it. We're done. That's it. It's over. So I had to tell them, like, folks, the car we got a little mechanical problem. And they're going, ha, 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 ha. Yeah, the car's breaking up. No, the hearse has really given up the ghost here. I'm afraid we're going to have to end it for tonight. But, the next year we had a couple come in, and I didn't recognize the name, but they had rebooked for the following Halloween because they didn't get to do the tour then. And everybody was always very nice about things, but it was kind of nerve wracking with the older car to like, oh, please make it through, get us all where we need to be.
Did you ever think of maybe like incorporating that into the tour later, like having the car break down in the cemetery or something?
Well, we didn't exactly have it break down, but we did give people a thrill. We would go, there was an abandoned prison in our area, and we would go up to the prison, and we had a number of things that were rigged in the car to start happening. We had something that would, make a knocking on the back door of the hearse that scared the fool out of people. And we could make my son, you could stream. So we didn't let him get out at the prison because I wasn't really sure if we were kind of trespassing, but I'd asked about getting permission to do that. And then I found it was better just to, look for forgiveness rather than permission.
Gotcha.
And the guy kind of had told me that. He said, be okay, but I knew that was a little bit on thin ice. So we didn't get out of the hearse. I didn't let them get out at that place, but they could watch the screen. And so it's black and white, but my son could make these light orbs float across the screen. So we'd have that happen. We'd have the knocking happen. And then we had a thing rigged up so that the lights would all start flashing inside. And so I would act like I was scared. And I just, as soon as that happened, I just opened the side door, hopped out, and got in the front with my son, the driver. And then I turned around to the back, people in the back, and I said, look, that's kind of freaky, but don't worry. They hardly ever get in the back. I said, we're going to have to leave. We're going to have to cut short. So we pull out of the prison, and then the lights start flashing again. And we had a little spot pulled over right across from the prison, really down by the river. And we pull over and I go, look, this is just it's not safe. We can't drive like this, So we're going to pull over. Well, we had a whole little film, thing rigged up where the lights would go out. You'd have spooky voices at first where they were sitting in the darkness. I'd pulled the curtain, of course, and said, y'all are on your own. And we had all this stuff happen until finally it kind of calmed down. We had faces that would happen, and I'd say, okay, I pull the curtain back. It looks like maybe it's okay. I think we can pull off now. And then I would act like I was noticing something out my window. I said, are y'all seeing this? I don't know if you can see this on the TV or not. And they'd start looking on the TV, to see what was going on, streaming outside. And of course we had the startle, prepared for them where this, ghost jumps at them on the screen. So, and then they, of course, knew they'd been had, but everybody had a good time with it. It was so much fun to do that, to borrow what we had done from our Halloween parties and put it in the hearse and give people a real, actual ghost experience, ghost experience.
Right, right, right.
They knew it was fake, but it was just for fun. But to give them a little bit more than your typical walking tour, they did get some history. There was real history mixed in with it, but there was also the fun stuff. So that was really fun to do. So all of that to say, okay, start writing 13th Day of Christmas. And then, okay, I've got some more stories. I'll put them in a book. And that's where I came up with the Tales from the Hearse idea. So I think I've got the book cover here. Here's the 13th Day of Christmas cover. Ta-da! That works.
Yep.
And then the Tales from the Hearse. Do that too. Now this is the hearse right there. This is this is me. That's in my getup. There is Virgil Nightshade. I had a nice cane with a skull on it, the top hat and the overcoat and everything. So that was a lot of fun. But the Tales from the Hearse, I think there's only one story in here that was the basis of something I told on the tours, because otherwise these stories are a lot scarier and darker and not as family friendly as what I could tell on, because I didn't know who I was going to have on a tour and what that would be, what they would be able to hear. So I had to kind of keep it family friendly. And these are definitely a little darker.
That's what I was going to ask is, did you sometimes do like some of the tours, like this tour is family friendly and, this tour is adults only, like this is going to be the scarier tour?
Yeah, sometimes I could decide whether to leave something out or not, or to push something a little bit more. It was basically the same script though for either one, but I could have, there was only one time and it was a girl that was probably at least, she looked like she was maybe 15. But it's just she and her mother, and they were the only ones that were doing the tour at that time. And when we did, I think we were doing the river tour, so we had done the prison thing. We didn't even get to do the prison stuff, and their mother said, she can't handle it. She's too scared. And we said,
no.
Okay. And I was thinking, what if we'd had other customers, she would have had to tough it out, because I couldn't cancel everything. But since it was just her, and I thought, well, you're the customer, so if you want to call it and go back, we can end it if we need to. There's still some more if you would like to do it. So I don't think, to be honest, that the tour was all that scary, but it was enough. It was enough for her. So.
Well, some people just, they think they like scary stuff and they get into it and it either just triggers them or they're just like, no, can't handle it. I have one friend, even though, she loves me. We've been friends since kindergarten. And she's like, Daniela, I'm never going to read your books. I can't. She's like, I just can't do it. And I'm like, that's totally fine. It's not for everybody. There's some people, they just can't handle it, and that's okay. And like, I think for some people, like when you do those kind of tours, like you do haunted houses and stuff, they get in there thinking they're okay. And then they just kind of, for me, I think for some people, I think it's more like the darkness or claustrophobia more than really the scenes or the, I was thinking when I was a teenager, we used to do haunted houses in high school all the time. But the best one, and the one that got to people, is another girl and I pretended to be people that were part of the group.
Yes. Yeah.
And then one of the guys was supposed to be like Pennywise the clown. And then at the very end of the tour, he would offer us a rose and we would take it and he would kill us in front of him.
Oh,
and that people don't expect that.
Right.
Well, what happened at the end of the night, which was really hilarious, is this one guy who was also in the drama club, his parents came. And so we're like, we got to do him together. So myself and the other girl, like, we're going to go in this together. And when we got to that scene, Johnine wanted to be killed. She was like, I want to be the one who gets killed. It's like, okay, you get to be killed. So Rick, who is the guy playing Pennywise, she takes the rose, which is the prop, like he throws her down and he's killing her, fake blood flying everywhere. Jeremiah's mom grabbed me by my hair and superwomaned me out of the haunted house. And I'm screaming like, no, my best friend, no. But she's like, I'm going to save this girl no matter what.
That's great.
Jeremiah's dad is like, do I jump in and try and save this other girl? And he came out of the haunted house like 2 seconds later, he figured it out. But then when we're standing there, she looked at her hand and realized she lost her ring in the haunted house. She freaked out. Her wedding ring was gone. And so we all turn on the lights. We're looking for it. it was in my hair. I had hair down to my waist. She had like just gone full on psycho, like dragging me out of the house. But some people, like, they just like flip, like when you throw something like that at them, they do stuff that, you don't think they're gonna do.
That's true. I often think that writing horror is like having a haunted house. I think there are a lot of parallels to those two things, and I think the best haunted houses and the best horror novels create excellent atmosphere. I mean, you got to have your jump scares and your startles and all that kind of stuff. But if you depend on that, it's not a good haunted house. I think you have to have more to it. And a book is the same way. If you only are going for the gore, anybody can do that. Anybody can startle somebody, and scare them. You can hide behind a door and jump out in your own house. It doesn't even have to be a haunted house, but it takes something to create that atmosphere. And to me, the haunted houses and the haunted attractions that I like the most have built really great atmosphere. And we had the opportunity this year. I finally got to do something on my bucket list. We flew to New Hampshire just to go to a haunted house in October and saw Haunted Overload. That to me is the best haunted attraction there ever is. It's all outside, but they have created the most wonderful large structures. You would love it, all the little houses and whatnot that you walk through, but it's just phenomenal, the detail that's there, and just walking these trails because it is outside. The lighting, the sound is phenomenal. They do it so well that they have different tickets that you can buy, and one of them is a daytime ticket where there are no actors, there's no sound, there's anything. You just walk through and you get to see what's there that you miss when you're doing the actual haunted night with people jumping out at you and everything. In fact, we did all three things. You could do a daytime tour, you could do a nighttime that had all the lights and sound, but no actors. So nobody was jumping out at you. You just got to walk through and experience that. I love that. And then we did the full tilt, with the actors surprising you. But so much is missed when you're doing that. But I loved what they did there. And as a writer, and I just see a parallel to that in writing a really good story, a horror story.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. When it comes to creating a setting, like they're they're on the East Coast, Asheville, the Blue Ridge Mountains. The setting can take on almost as much of a character as like the characters we create. How does living there, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, how does that come into play in your stories?
Well, I have set everything in North Carolina. I think that's mainly or the region, the Southeast, mainly because that's what I'm familiar with. And it's kind of like that old, write about what you know. And so I've kind of felt like, okay, I'll stick to the area that I know. For the most part, the stories, I'm trying to think of stories where setting was important. Mainly I would create something like, in the Tales from the Hearse, it might be a cemetery. There are a couple of stories that take place in cemeteries. And since I had, taken people on tours through cemeteries, I often could picture those and use those as atmosphere. But the thing that was kind of really cool, there's a really different thing that happened for me in writing, and it gave me a great whole structure to be able to write with. After I wrote the 13th Day of Christmas and I started to do the podcast and started to do Dark Corners, I wanted some music. I wanted some dark ambient music as background. And so I found through a mutual friend in Asheville, found a musician in Raleigh, in the Raleigh area of North Carolina. And he said, well, contact him and see if I think he'll let you use your music. And I said, could I use some of your stuff? And he said, sure. He didn't charge me or anything. So I used that when I was narrating my stories. But then discovering his work, he had one album. He creates albums that are nothing but instrumental, really creepy, beautiful music. But he has like a movie in his head, even though there's not going to be any talking in it. And this is Mombi Ullman. And on this book, I'm going to hold this up here, Which Works. And you can see it's based on the soundtrack or the music of Mombi Ullman. He had this album connected there. Posted there. And I loved it. And I said, he had just like a paragraph about a concept for this storyline that was in his head. It was a Halloween story set on the coast of North Carolina, a little coastal town where there was a toy factory, a ruined, the old ruins of a toy factory
Oh, wow.
with some dark figure that had been in the 20s when the toy factory was actually going, and mysterious things happened. And he had a murder perhaps in mind. And I said, I like the idea of that. Could I just take that basic thing and write a little novella about it, and make it, expand it a little
Wow.
bit? He said, sure, take it and run with it. And I said, I'll use your music. So I used the tracks, the 13, well, I don't remember how many he had. Always make 13 stories, but I used each of his tracks as a chapter
Wow.
for my book, and made a new story about a guy who had left the little town of Murray Bay and gone to teach in college, but he returns home when his father dies. And his farm was on the property near where the toy factory was. And so lots of spooky things happen.
Oh, wow.
I won't get too much into the plot there, but a haunted house, a very unique haunted house, the mansion where the toy manufacturer lived at one time. And I really like what I did with that haunted house. Not only the factory is pretty creepy too. It starts right off with a dream sequence in the factory. But the mansion was the setting, where you talk about setting being really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just so much fun with that. And Mombi's music could inspire what I wanted to have happen in the story. So that was a really neat way to do that. And then that kind of led me, there's another one. Let me hold up another book here. He had another whole album called Wraiths of the Appalachian. We get it. So my light is getting glare off the computer screen there, but Wraiths of the Appalachian. And that was a real neat story of his, where he had an idea of like the devil going on a journey through the Appalachian Mountains, and he encounters all sorts of cryptids and supernatural beings that are in the folklore of the Appalachian Mountains. And I said,
Wow.
it worked last time. Can we do this again? And I'll use your music and write a story. But this time I took a character. Just had a guy that was just kind of going through, he wasn't old enough to be midlife crisis, but he's in his 30s, but feeling like he's adrift and he doesn't really have purpose. He just needs to get on the road, and he gets in an old Volkswagen bus and just heads out. And the radio starts talking to him. There's a voice on the radio that mysteriously comes on and starts directing him where to go. So that was my frame for having him go to 13 places along the mountains in the Appalachian region here.
Wow.
And to use the essence of real folklore stories, but have him interact with them in a very, very different way. So that was kind of cool. So he goes, I had to make a list because I've forgotten the stories that he goes, but like one of the things that's in North Carolina in the mountains is the Brown Mountain Lights, these mysterious lights that float down on the edge of the mountains. And so I included that in there. The Bell Witch, you may have heard of in Tennessee.
Actually, no, I've never heard of the Bell Witch. What's
it's
that?
a neat story that goes back to like in this late 1700s, even of a family that was there, and this landowner, and the daughter just started, it's almost like she was possessed, but they were blaming a woman that lived there as thinking she was a witch, and that the daughter was bewitched. So this idea of the Bell Witch, Bell being the name of the family there, is still there. So it's a tourist attraction, and you can go to the Bell Witch Farm and the Bell Witch Cave. So I had my character have to spend the night there and have things happen. But the coolest thing of all, and this is a real story too, of the basis for it was, but at the very first stop, he goes to a place called the Devil's Tramping Ground, where it's believed that there's an area of grass in this forest where the grass or nothing grows. And so kids go there and drink. I mean, it's a real place, but you can always find everything, all that kind of stuff there. He goes to camp there, but this black, large wolf dog, a dog that he later realized like a wolf dog, appears. And there is a legend in the hills in the Appalachian Mountains of a dog that goes back to even Civil War times called Snarly Yow. And Snarly Yow was this like fires in his eyes. He's a black dog, and there's no story of him killing anybody. People are just afraid of him, and they try to kill him, and nobody can ever kill Snarly Yow. But even today, people have stories of seeing this large phantom dog on the Blue Ridge Parkway while they're driving. Some people claim they've hit it, and they get out and know the dog's okay, and it takes off. So
Wow.
I incorporated Snarly Yow into the first stop that my character, Eddie Bowen is his name, where Eddie camps for the first night. The dog comes out, and then it becomes his sidekick and travels with him for the rest of the journey.
Oh, wow.
And Snarly Yow is like my favorite thing, and people that have read the story, the other two people, they they really like Snarly Yow. It's like their favorite part is that dog. So Eddie's a phantom dog because he's, you know, got to make it special somehow. So there's a whole aspect of the story about Snarly Yow. So that's, I was able to then take, okay, real places. Some of them I've been to, not all of them have I been to. In fact, another fun thing I got to do was to go, because one of the places, let's see, where was it? Two things. The Kentucky Goblins, a lot of people have maybe followed that legend. There's a museum that has some little figures that kind of they have lots of things about the area that aren't supernatural, but they also have little figures of the Kentucky Goblins. Well, I went online and looked at the little town where this takes place, kind of walked the streets virtually, and it was just so cool to do that. I found a little cafe that was there, so I incorporated that into the story.
Oh, cool.
And then I started talking to people. I would say, well, and I did this in Flatwoods, West Virginia, because there's the Flatwoods Monster is another story. And there's even a whole museum dedicated to him. And so I would go online and find these people and I'd say, well, tell me a little bit about that. And we'd start friendships up and you'd have these conversations with real people, even though I hadn't actually been there. And for the Flatwoods Monster, this is so cool. I saw on their page that they had a Flatwoods Monster festival every year.
Oh, wow.
And on the festival that I had looked at, there was a belly dancing group that was performing at a funeral home as part of the activities for the festival that day. I said,
awesome.
I couldn't have made that up. I said, I've got to incorporate this into the group. So I contacted the group, the dancers, became friends with them. We did a whole conference online and talked about it. They were wonderful. So I've worked that into the story with Snarly Out and everything else. Is like, this is just so cool to have this whole adventure where I'm meeting people and working them into the book and having fun with it. So that's just something that I had not ever counted on, but it just developed and was just such a fun thing to do.
No, that's epic. I mean, it's sometimes, researching the story is sometimes just as fun as writing the story. And I mean, some of I'll definitely have to look some of those up, because I had I mean, I followed you and you were publishing these stories. I had no idea about that you had, maybe I didn't understand that you had written these as you were listening to Mombai's music.
Yes, right,
then,
right.
Yeah, I knew that they were, they were kind of like, I was following you. It's like, oh, because I actually downloaded some of his music. Like I bought some of his music because it's just so eerie. It's like, it's beautiful and eerie. But I didn't realize the connection. But then also the stories was like, oh, these are real, like these are legends from the East Coast. I was stationed in Charleston for 3 years when I was in the Navy.
Oh,
but
neat.
that's low country legends, down there towards Charleston. So when you get up there towards North Carolina,
in the mountains, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my roommate at the time was from North Carolina, up in the mountains.
Cool.
North Carolina farm boy named
dude.
Brian. And so he was definitely a riot. Just the real thick accent, and just his friends would come down. We were only roommates for a short time, but we were real good friends. His roommates would come down like from the farm, and so we'd have these 4 big North Carolina farm boys passed out in our living room.
I can believe it. That's great. Well, that was the neat thing about it. And then for Race of the App, like I should have mentioned too, that for Race and I mean, all of my stories, virtually all the music that I use is from Mamba Ullman's music. But Race of the Appalachian is his album. And he actually did the music for that. I had edited everything from, I think, for Witchworks, and definitely the Tales from the Hearse and anything I used there. And I, just pulled his music down and used it as I could. But for Race, I said, would you mind? And Mamba is actually the voice of the guy on the radio, Mr. D, the mysterious guy that directs my protagonist through the mountains. Mamba is the voice, and
cool.
It was just so much fun. And in fact, in addition to that, Well, meeting people online and everything. And I threw it out there. You may have recalled this at one point for the Bell Witch. I said, there's going to be some music in here, and I need a song. A song. I need someone to sing a song, and maybe even come up with a song. And I got several people that were willing to do that. But one of the people, let's see if I can recall, Shauna. Oh gosh, her last name's running. I was trying to look to see if I jotted it. She's a horror writer too, and does wonderful things. She lives out in San Francisco. She contacted and said, "Well, yeah, I'll do that." I knew that she had a musical background and a theatrical background, and she said, "Sure, yeah, I can do that." Shauna McGinnis.
Yeah, I would say I know Shauna. It's like I didn't realize she did music.
She sings, and she's done musicals and whatnot, and directed musicals. So cool. I kind of came up with a little tune. I can't remember if Mombi came up with the actual melody and played that. And of course, he's in North Carolina, so I'm recording that, sending that to Shauna, and said, "Well, could you sing something to go over top of that?" So she did that, and the singing voice and the speaking voice for the Bell Witch. One of the Bell Witch's personalities, because actually the Bell Witch in my story is kind of multi-personalities. She's got kind of psychotic. So it was so much fun to have these different people contributing in different ways. I just couldn't believe it. It's just so. And when I found the belly dancers in Flatwoods, when I started looking at what they had done and talked to them about it, and they told me more about what their show actually was. One of the dancers had a whole dance set up for Snarly Owl. I'd never even heard of Snarly Owl before I found this, and she was amazed that I was incorporating that into the story, and so she loved that it was a part of the story. It's like, well, this was just meant to be. I mean,
yeah, it's almost like all the dots connecting.
Yeah,
that's so crazy.
Really cool. That in fact, I wonder if that's on the back of this book. If I have that, speaking of dots connected, on the back of Wraiths. Yeah, I don't know if this will show up or not. Let me see if I can get that to go. Can you see that the map of the trail, my reflection here, actually makes a dog's head? Now, that is something, that was a map that Mombi made before I ever wrote the story. And he had just plotted things out, and then he noticed that it actually made the shape of a dog's head. Cool. And Snarly Owl was just one of his tracks on his album, and I kind of made Snarly Owl a bigger deal in the book, but I was like, there were just so many things about that whole collection with Wraiths of the Appalachian, from Mombi's start at the beginning before I even jumped in and started writing the story, to then what happened after I started writing the story. Is like, there's just so much cool stuff that happened with that.
Yeah, it's just, but that's when it just like all came together as if it were meant to be.
Yeah, it really is. So that's been really cool. So those have been my main projects, and I'm about to write a bit. This year has been just kind of a crazy year. So I took a unplanned hiatus from writing a bit, but now, as of even next week, I have planned out the plot for the next project that I want to do, but I haven't done anything with it for quite a while. So I'm looking forward actually to this coming week is to diving back into that and getting the next story up and running. But I'm not sure whether I'll put it out on the Dark Corners or not. I should mention that people can listen to, you can buy these books obviously, but the story of Wraiths of the Appalachian and Witchworks, you can hear the whole story with Mombi's music in the background on Dark Corners, in its episodes, 13 episodes.
Tell the audience about Dark Corners, your podcast. So obviously you're on the Indiescape here, but we support other indie projects, and we love to hear about other podcasts. So please tell us about Dark Corners.
Well, I appreciate it. It's a very independent, as in, now 2 people when Mombi's involved with it, and definitely has been a huge contribution to it with his music. But it's just me doing the stories. But it is Anchor is who I use, and they're part of Spotify. So you can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Podcasts and maybe a couple of other places too. But and I don't have a pattern. I did have when they were coming out, they'd be like every 2 weeks or something like that. But now you can just find, there are 3 seasons, I guess. The first season is just short stories that I pulled from several of the books. There's kind of a mini season, I guess, of Christmas stories. So you can kind of find those. They may be kind of scattered when you scroll for those. And then you've got all of Which Works and all of Rates of the Appalachian as a set, like a season. So if you just find, if you'll just search for Dark Corners in your podcasts, or if you're online using your computer, go to Anchor and put my name in, David Allen Voyles, or put Dark Corners, and it'll come up that way.
Right
So
on.
also, I guess maybe this is the time to go ahead and put the links in. You can find all of this stuff on my website, which is just my name, davidallenvoyles.com. So easy place to do that. Facebook too. I invite people to join me on the Dark Corners Facebook page. It's a group page, but we welcome everybody. And I'll put some stuff there that give updates and news and also just creepy stuff and funny stuff. So there, things are there. People can sign up for my newsletter. It's been dormant for a little while, but again, this week I'm getting ready to crank that up again, and it'll be a monthly. And I will just give them some interesting things. I do a little short, very short story. Usually include one of those, like they used to do. I don't know. I guess they're still doing it. I did it for like a year and a half on Twitter, where you tell a whole little complete story. So that was kind of fun to do. But I usually put one of those in the newsletter. Give updates on the black bears that we have around here, especially a three-legged mama bear that we love and have seen for about, gosh, how old is 9 years, I guess. Named Eileen because she lost a paw when she was just her very first year of life, and so she's a three-legged bear. And the name is a pun, Eileen. But she's but she's a sweetheart that we see all the time. She's had 2 sets of cubs since we've been seeing her here. So they're probably a little different than the bears that you see, the grizzlies and whatnot. And I don't know what all you get, the brown bears, but our black bears are.
We get the grizzlies and the black bears up here.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
You do
the
black bears? Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew you had grizzlies, and your black bears probably behave a little differently than ours in these mountains. But I mean, we try to leave them alone for the most part. Eileen being, she was a cub. It's just kind of a special case because of her injury. So, because we don't believe you should be feeding the bears and all that kind of business. But as a cub, we did kind of take care of her. So she kind of adopted us. So she comes back and comes through every, show off her cubs and come through the area. So it's
right on.
Yeah,
here in Alaska, like especially down here, like south of the Brooks Range, you have black bear. The grizzly bear range, they can go north of the Brooks Range, but they're all over the interior too. So like out in Chicken, we have both black bear and brown bear. Here in Anchorage, we've got, actually, ironically, the show we did exactly 1 year ago today was with our bear experts.
Oh, wow.
On bear deterrence. And
Yes.
Here in Anchorage, I can't remember how many black, I'd have to look up the statistics, how many we have now here in Anchorage in terms of black bear and brown bear. But, we here where we live in Anchorage, because we live near a creek, we can see black bear and brown bear in, we've had sightings, on our street.
Yeah.
But, really the moose are more dangerous. The moose are more dangerous.
That's what I hear. Moose are scary.
Oh, moose are, well, and I think what's scary is they can turn on a dime. They can seem like this, complacent, calm little thing just chewing on some leaves. And then the next thing you know, it's, 2,000 pounds of rage. And you never know which one it's going to be. In fact, I shared a video. I shared a video today of like some moose antics, and one of them was like a person just sitting in a car, and the moose comes up and slams on the windshield, takes their hooves and just bam. And we've heard all kinds of things like that going on. But you just try and like leave them alone. Just give them their space. Yeah, up north where I work, where I'm working at Pump 4, we don't get polar bear that far south. But when you go up towards Prudhoe Bay, you can see polar bear. And you definitely want to give you like they'll put notices, on the radio and across the field when a polar bear has been sighted, because you do not. They're
huge too.
They're huge, and they are top predators. They hunt humans, and It's like, yeah, whenever there's been one sighted, they let everybody know, and of course, then everybody jokes. It's like, go with a slower friend.
Yeah, right.
And
Yep,
I've
that's the best deterrent there. Just have a slow friend.
yeah, go with
Yeah.
a slow friend, and yeah, I've only been like I've gotten to see one up there once. It was actually a female and two juvenile cubs. And then, like, one of the facilities I was at, we had like a full grown male come onto the pad, and we were all kind of locked down. So it was pretty exciting there for a bit. But
I
yeah,
bet I can imagine. Well, in Asheville, being a tourist town and everything, we are coping with it, trying to learn. And as the town expands, then obviously you have more interaction of humans and bears, and your people trying to do their best to educate people about what not to do. And so we're learning about our bear-proof trash cans and bird feeders and all that kind of stuff. So people are generally pretty good about it. They're learning. We'll put it that way, because as we're having more, and like I say, our whole situation, we like seeing them come through, but I don't like them to mess with the stuff. So I try to do everything I can to keep that up. But Eileen is our special case bear, where she's just like, she is a very unique bear. She's just something else. And when we saw her and what had happened to her with her, like when we realized when she was injured, it was just so traumatic. And got a little help from some wildlife photographers about maybe what we could do to kind of help her out a little bit. And I think it did save her life. And we like that idea. She's fine. Right, but we don't, we just like to see the other ones pass through. It's like, yep, it's good. There they are. There they go. That's nice. That's good. Go on. Don't mess with my stuff. Because they do like to play. Oh, cubs are incredible. They'll tear everything up that you've got. Everything's a toy. Everything's a toy to them. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So I keep people posted a little bit about Eileen that have followed me for a few years. They want to know, well, how's Eileen? And she's still around. Didn't have cubs this year. Yay.
Right on.
That's pretty much my thing. But my project, I'll give a teaser if that's okay.
Oh yeah, totally. Please do.
Concept, and I'm not sure how I'm going to publish it. I may experiment with this in an episodic release, kind of maybe even use Amazon's Vellum. I'm kind of intrigued with the idea of just releasing something and let people kind of buy the episode and try that just in print. But I don't know. But I'm going to write it first, and then we'll see. But this is going to be a fictional fantasy horror novel about Edgar Allan Poe when he was 15, living in Richmond, Virginia. And base it on one summer of his life. And I'm going to weave in some things that were real about his life, like the woman that his real true love that most people don't know about, whom he met right then. And they were separated when he went off to West Point. And the father didn't like him because his biological parents were actors. And so his father just killed all the letters and the correspondence that was going on. And Edgar and his girlfriend, Elmira was her name, they thought that the other one had dropped him. So that was it. And then he married Virginia, his cousin, and all that stuff happened. And then later in life, at the end of his life, he was coming back, in fact, to marry her. They had gotten together and they were going to get married before he died. But anyway, that's later in his life. I just want to take this little segment of life about when he was 15 and create a fantasy environment with using some real people and events, but have things happen. 13 things. I'm real big on 13, but I took 13 of his stories. Yeah, get a pattern going there. 13 stories of Edgar Allan Poe's, but have things happen where you the reader can go, that's where young Edgar got the idea for the Black Cat, or for the Cask of Amontillado, or for the Telltale Heart. And it's all have things that aren't the story, but you can see, that was the basis for his story of what happened to him when he was 15. So I thought that's going to be kind of a fun thing. It'll be fantasy and supernatural and horror and stuff, but also sort of fun. He's going to have a one-eyed black cat that's kind of a sidekick, and a raven that's just kind of a morose. He just says gloomy stuff all the time, like Eeyore, I guess.
Is it going to be really dark, or is it going to be, how dark is it going to be? It'll
be pretty dark, but I think it'll be the kind of book too that will have, it'll be something that I hope adult book, but one that young people can like too. So I'll probably keep it with a YA, kind of audience in mind also. but
Okay.
just keep it kind of wide in that regard. But it'll be pretty dark because I can't not do that.
Nice. Right on.
Yeah. So that's what I'm looking and getting ready to work on, and that'll be keeping me busy for the next few weeks, and then I'll be posting about its progress, and then eventually where people can find it.
That's awesome. That sounds like a really epic project.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to diving back into it and getting going with that. I've been excited, so ready to go now.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to we're definitely coming to the end of our hour, but this has been we didn't even get to half my questions I had.
Wait a minute. I've got a question because I kept seeing it all night and I can't figure out what it is. David, there appears to be a tattoo on your forearm.
Oh,
what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I do have let's see, it'll be upside down for you this way, but if I can turn on my head, you can see it. But this is my logo actually for that I'm using, that my son created. Actually, it's a inkwell with a raven's feather and a scythe, like two pins that you might use, a miniature scythe. It's the logo that's on almost everything of mine on my website. Now that I'm printing or publishing myself, just put the books on Amazon, it's my dark press image and logo for that too. So yeah, that's I can't stand right for it to be able to show up there, but it's because the way I've got it, it's down like this.
You'd have to
have it upside down, you have to reverse the image. And
I kept noticing it, and I'm like, man, they got the deep dark black in there, and what is that?
Yeah, so you can see it. The inkwell's at the bottom, and the feather and the scythe are on this side. You have to do things backwards on the computer there, so that's kind of that. So
that is very cool.
He's that image of Flipper. And my son has done so much of the art. He did most of the art, or all the art for 3 of the books. Mombi actually did the book cover for Witchworks, but my son he's just talented with technical stuff and with graphic stuff, and he's artistic, so he did those covers as well. So he did this, and I thought, well, it was kind of my recommitment. That this year has been kind of a rough year. My wife's family lost 2 of her family members this year. We just and I kind of recovering from a lot of that, and so I haven't been writing, and so it's almost like and Danielle, what it's like independent publishing is tough, to get stuff out there, and it's like there's a recommitment going, let's do it. If nobody buys the book, that's fine too. I'm just gonna write. I got to write for me no matter what, and then see what happens. What happens, and you'll learn to market, and I'm gonna I'll do some more stuff with that and see what I can do, but get back in it and dive back into writing. So it's kind of a way to commit again to writing.
Well, you've got some awesome stuff already published, and the Edgar Allan Poe thing sounds pretty epic. So sign me up for a reviewer for that. That's
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Cool.
So, all right. So if we can, one more time, David, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media and where they can find your books?
Absolutely. On the internet, my website is davidallenvoyles.com. It's just my full name, my author name, .com. On Facebook, I have a Dark Corners Facebook group open to everyone. Dark Corners is the podcast, and you can search it for that name and find it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And I'm David Allen Voyles on Instagram and Twitter, although I haven't been very active with Twitter lately. I don't blame Elon Musk. I don't know, blame somebody. But Facebook and Instagram a little bit more, probably for social media.
That is excellent. What an awesome 1-year anniversary show, Danielle.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah, it was an honor to be here on your anniversary. I appreciate that. As it turned out, we'll thank the hurricane for that, right?
Yep.
All right. So, David, thank you for joining us again. It was amazing.
Yeah, this was a great show. Thank you.
We're great. It was a lot of fun.
Good night.
Good night.
You just know how to pick them. I don't know.
I do. that was pretty awesome because I follow him online. This is kind of a funny story. I bought his books. Like I bought a whole bunch of his books for my parents for Christmas, like last year or 2 years ago, and I bought some for myself, and I started reading them, and my father-in-law stole them.
Oh.
My father-in-law, who has dementia, he stole them, and I don't know if he took them with him back to when he went to Massachusetts, or if he hid them in the house, because I've been finding books that he hid throughout the house. Because when he had dementia, he would take my books and he'd start reading them. So, and then he would just put them random places. So I've been finding books in really weird random places.
Oh, interesting.
I had started reading Witchworks and it disappeared. And I hope I find it. But it was hilarious because my father-in-law would pick, like I had bought, there's this one book that was by Danielle Anaconda, and it was by Immortal Honor Bound, and it was a romance novel, like a paranormal romance with angels and stuff. And I got this great picture of him sitting out on the deck reading it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder what scene he's at now, because it was a very spicy romance, shall we say, and he's just sitting there like digging into it. And I'm just like, oh boy, I wonder what he thinks of that. And then he'd pick up another one, but then they'd disappear. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, he's just like, what is he doing with all my books?
Oh, we got Sean Smithson in the house. Hey, sorry I'm late. I have to watch the replay. Been working 20 hours a day. Hey, be
Good
careful,
to see you, Sean.
Oh, and I missed one from Ray earlier. I apologize. You can read that. Or
Okay.
not.
At 72 below my lowest, I was using 3 layers over my mouth. At best, you have 10 to 15 minutes to get things done before it's too cold. The cold can freeze your alveoli and cause a cold-induced pneumonia. Yeah, actually, when I was working up north, the coldest I ever worked in was like minus 65 with like a minus 80 something wind chill. And when it's that cold, you're pretty much, you're all decked up and you just go from your truck to the building and from the building to the truck. And they restrict when we get to minus 40, they restrict movement outside. Like you have to get permission to go out and do work, and it has to be like emergency work. You can't just be out there messing around.
Yeah, CJ was asking, can you even breathe in that temperature?
Like I said, I'll have like a full face mask on. I'll have like stuff over my eyes because your eyes will you'll leak tears and your eyelids will freeze up, and like your tears will start freezing your cheeks and giving you frostbite.
So wait a minute. Wait. And you voluntarily do this?
I get paid pretty well to do it.
Okay.
Hey.
Yeah. And again, ladies and gentlemen, ask me why I live in Florida.
Well, we're building in Hawaii now.
Okay. I mean, we don't have volcanoes in Florida, but
yeah, we have volcanoes in Alaska and Hawaii, so it's
So Daniela, you have books out as well, and some social media places.
I do. So you can find The Dark Land and The Devil's Valley on Amazon. My social media, you can find me DM Shepherd 13. Basically, I'm the same on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I also have a website, which is just dmshepherd.com, where you can find just about everything that I put out there. I'm also on TikTok as well at dmshepherd13. I just tried to keep them all the same. So that's where you can find me.
Yeah, I watched that one TikTok slip up that you posted in the chat, and
oh, that was funny. That lady. Oh my gosh, with her. Because I have kind of wacky friends, and yeah, that was hilarious because it looks like a piece of meat, like for your boobs. It's like,
so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be wrapping this up right now, and if you could kindly go to the Indie Escape Network social channels. We have Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. If you would kindly go like, subscribe. What is there? Like, subscribe, and something else. I don't know. I can't get with all these damn
Well, but
things.
also if you start following us, you may have a chance to have your stuff read on our next show. Or
I'd like to bump that up a bit. Instead of just being read on the next show, let's have them on.
we can do that too. We can bring them on.
Let's bring them on for a couple of minutes to promote their stuff. I mean, that's
Yep.
what we're about.
Yep, this
Helping
is
the
what we're about.
indies.
We do want, like David said, it is tough getting your stuff promoted as an indie author, indie filmmaker. Let's try and help each other. And like I said, tomorrow, if you're watching this, tomorrow is Community Day. So you'll see my little post tomorrow about post your links, post your blogs, post whatever, help us find you and help us boost you. So like, don't be shy. Like, promote yourself tomorrow. Like tomorrow's a free for all day. So we want to hear where you are and what you're selling.
All right. Well, with that being said, any closing words?
Other than we're the Indie Escape, please like and follow our Facebook page. And we hope you're having a wonderful new year.
There you go. Have a great evening, everybody. I'm going to hit a few buttons now and make things awkward for everybody. So we're going to do a little bit of that. We're going to do a little bit of